Last Thursday, in the dead of night, Bitcoin started to crash. At first, nobody knew why. Then it came out. Galaxy Digital was quietly offloading 80,000 BTC for a Satoshi-era investor. This was the largest notional sale in Bitcoin's history. Over $9 billion in Bitcoin, untouched for more than a decade, suddenly hit the market. 14 years of hodling, zero activity, and then a move that could have shattered the market's confidence. But it did not. Prices dipped from 119,000 to well below 115,000 on Friday. But by day's end, we were back above 117K. The market absorbed it like it was nothing. Now, remember when Do Kwon dumped a similar amount of Bitcoin back in 2022? That triggered a full-blown meltdown, the kind of selling that nuked the market. This cycle, it's a different world. Institutional buyers are circling. Demand is deep. Bitcoin is now trading just a few percentage points below its all-time high. And wouldn't you know, Michael Saylor is sitting on $2.5 billion from his latest IPO of STRC, locked and loaded to buy more Bitcoin. The selling pressure is gone. The fuel is loaded. Is the next leg up about to begin? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's version of the Bitcoin News Weekly live stream. I am very happy and grateful to be joined by Q, my man. How you doing?
Great, brother. It's been way too long, Rob.
Yeah. We were doing some spaces back a couple months ago talking about the newsletter, but now we've upgraded. We're all live. We're on screen, and we're breaking down the biggest news in Bitcoin. Q. But you've had quite the update in your Bitcoin career recently. Where are you at now?
Oh yeah, no, I am the latest member of the Swan private team. So honestly, it was kind of a perfect melding of years of just orange pilling family and friends and getting them set up with Bitcoin, purchasing Bitcoin, helping them with their cold storage. It kind of was just like a no-brainer, and it's been an incredible experience. Just a couple months in, but it's been the best time. Great team, and loving the opportunity to just teach as many people as I can about Bitcoin.
Nice, man. Yeah, you just get to chat all day about BTC. Not a bad gig.
Yep. Yep. It's kind of a nerd's dream come true, to say the least.
Nice. Well, so is this. We get to talk about the latest newsletter. Every week, we come out with Bitcoin News Weekly, fresh to your inbox, 7 a.m. Eastern. We break down the biggest headlines in all of Bitcoin, and then we hop on live at 11 a.m. and share it with you. The title of this week's edition is Bitcoin Absorbs $10 billion in sell pressure like it's nothing. Galaxy Digital helps clients sell 80,000 Bitcoin. Bitcoin rebounds within 48 hours from what historically may have triggered a bear market. So, Q, this was the biggest news of the last couple of days. Love to hop in it with you. So yes, we have Galaxy Digital. They are one of the longest tenured companies in the space. They have a OTC desk. They do mining. They do some AI stuff. They've been in all different aspects of crypto. But there was a whale, somebody who had Bitcoins from 2011. They hadn't touched it for 14 years. And then a couple of weeks ago, they sent it over to Galaxy. Then last week, in the middle of the night on Thursday, Galaxy decides to sell it. Well, they were told to sell it, right? They were selling it for the client. And this is well over $9 billion worth of Bitcoin. And if we bring up the chart here, we can see that the selling started right here. And we went straight down overnight. We found a bottom around 114,000, which just so happens to be, there was a CME gap, a legendary CME gap there that had to be filled. And it looks like this drop down did fill that gap. But in the preceding hours over Friday, boom, we went straight back up. Right now, all of crypto, I think right now is taking a little of a beating as markets open in the US on this Monday morning. But we are back as if pretty much nothing happened. This is 80,000 Bitcoin sold, right? Over $9 billion worth. Something that in the past would have been something Bitcoin would have a very hard time from recovering from. So, yeah, what did you think was going on when you saw this sell-off, and what do you think it means moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the first big piece to really unpack because, like as you pointed out, we saw a crash. I put crash in quotes very intentionally to 115, 114, and that price level, while a let's call the top of this b- the top of the crash started at 120 all the way down to 115, so $5,000. Bitcoin lost in cumulative value $5,000 per coin. If we were talking 4 years ago, that's massive. We're talking double digit percent. People are like, oh my God, it's the end of the bull market. Every single FUD that you could think of. In today, 2025, a $5,000 drop is what? Less than 5%, about
Less than.
4% drop. And that happened over the span of like 2 or 3 days. And the trading band of Bitcoin is roughly plus or 2% any day. So if in 2 days you have a 5% drop, that's within the trading band of a uh daily price window for Bitcoin. So you actually to what everyone has been talking about, the fact that we just saw 9 billion Bitcoin enter the marketplace and Bitcoin trade well within its band. And then on the other side of it, even if you take the other side of this argument, here we are now 2 more days later, and the Bitcoin price is what, 118? It was at 119 when I fell asleep. So my bad, guys. I couldn't keep propping the price up a little higher. But we're seeing something really interesting. And I saw this comment because we talked about this at Swan last week, and I want to unpack this comment. The argument that I saw kind of like negating or like almost like downplaying this is, oh, well, that means that if all these Bitcoin treasury companies that we've been hearing they're raising money, they're about to come and start buying Bitcoin. Oh, 9 billion of sales did nothing to the price. That means 9 billion of buys should also do nothing to the price. Not true. Not true. Because all we've seen now is there's $9 billion worth of buys at any given moment. That does not also mean that there are 9 billion worth of sales at any given moment. And that's a really important note that if any point another Satoshi-era whale enters the market, we can kind of sit around here. But if there are no more of these level of whales entering the market will just be forced to go higher. So this is a really interesting point that I think is getting lost in some of the comments I'm seeing on Twitter around people being a little too bearish. Look, I'm not calling for $1 million Bitcoin this year. I'm just not. Call me bearish all you want, but that requires us to surpass the market cap of gold. And that's at this point, that's what I'm paying attention to is market caps. That's and anyone who's not, I think you're a bit too naive, just like the guy who tried to convince my dad last week that Ripple is going to go to $5,000 per coin. And then my dad looked this guy dead in the face and was like, so you think the market cap of Ripple is going to be over $300 trillion? Okay, buddy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, lots to unpack there. There's definitely been the awakening of some of these ancient coins, right? Many coins that people had thought had been lost forever are waking up, are moving, and are being some are being sold, right? And so Galaxy put out a press release, and they said that this was part of someone's estate planning. So we don't know exactly what happened. Maybe someone passed away, and their spouse was in control of it and said, "I don't know what to do with this Bitcoin. Please sell it for me. I'll take the I'll take the 9 billion, $10 billion and call it a day."
Right.
Um,
I'll never
or
work
what?
again. Twist my arm.
Your multiple generations will never have to work again, right? But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see that we're at this 100K psychological level. Whales that have held Bitcoin from 2011 when it was a couple of bucks realize that, okay, I can again set my multiple generations free from ever having to worry about work or money again. It's time to do this. But this is natural, and this is what should happen in a bull market, right? These coins trade hands. They go from, you need this rotation in order for the bull market to continue and for new blood to be brought in and new bulls that will hold for another 14 years and offload in the 2030s and 40s are brought on board today. So it's this is natural, and it's just amazing to see what Bitcoin can handle now, right? I mean, losing $5,000 off the market cap takes off hundreds of millions of dollars off of one coin, takes off hundreds of millions of dollars off the market cap. But boom, it's right back. And as we'll get into later, Saylor is primed, ready to go. He didn't buy anything last week, so there was no buy pressure from Saylor, who's usually good for a couple $100 million. Now he's got 2.5 billion ready to go for this week. But it's super, I'd say. Supportive and gives you a good confidence in Bitcoin that it could withstand such a sale, and we're right here.
Yeah, this is exciting times. This is going to be a very fun year. Like this is the Thanksgiving. We're all going to take that victory lap. This is that Christmas where everyone is going to be expecting the expensive present from you Bitcoiners. Um, let's enjoy the bull market this year, to say the least.
And so tell us, I mean, you're on the phone, you're talking to wealthy individuals who want to allocate towards Bitcoin. What is their sentiment? Are you getting more phone calls? Are they bullish? Do they know more now than they did in the past? What's it like for you right now?
You know, it's a healthy mix. I will say this. I think the biggest signal to me is when I have my friends be like, all right, like enough. Let me buy a little bit of Bitcoin. Like in that like almost like begrudging, like, okay, you were right, but I can't say those words because you, Q, will have too big of an ego about it. But also like I need your help because I know that there's of anyone in my life, you're the one that won't shut up about Bitcoin. That to me is the biggest signal, and it's starting. It hasn't like fully tipped the scale, but I've had friends be like, hey, like, where would you recommend I start buying? Like, how much should I start putting in? Um, I do think though that the what has surprised me, especially in my role at Swan, has been the the type of clientele that is coming in to Swan right now in particular. They're not completely out of the loop. I'd say like it's far and few between where someone's kind of requesting to have a conversation. They're like, yeah, I don't know anything. I need you to like really explain it all to me. Most of the people at bare minimum are like, hey, like I just need some exposure to Bitcoin in my portfolio. Like this seems like a really good investment. There are people who genuinely surprise me and they're like, hey, I want to self custody. I need to do this or that. Like their knowledge is truly impressive. And I think we're at this point too where I think we're having more and more conversations with financial managers, like tried and true, like Merrill Lynch people, Morgan Stanley type people who are their hands are tied. They can't get their clients Bitcoin, but they also have clients regularly speaking to them, asking them questions like, hey, like how can I buy Bitcoin? And they're like, shoot, like Merrill can't. Merrill literally, you cannot even buy the ETFs. You can't buy MicroStrategy. You can't. The closest you can get to Bitcoin exposure, and this makes me like vomit a little bit, and it's not because I'm hungover, but like the closest a Merrill client could get to Bitcoin right now is buying the S&P 500 because Coinbase is in the S&P 500. Otherwise, they have to go out on their own. But this is one of the things that I've been doing a lot is speaking to Merrill advisors and just kind of raising my hand and saying, hey, I exist. Swan exists. Let us be your partner in this endeavor. By no means I'm going to tell your client take all their money out of Merrill, but especially if they're asking about Bitcoin, why don't the three of us hop on a call? And it was supposed to be a 30-minute call with one of these Merrill branches that turned into a 2.5 hour call right before the fourth, where the younger partner, knowledgeable, understands Bitcoin, like kind of straight to the point, but the older partner, he is still stuck on the, well, what about all the energy? What about the terrorism? All the FUD that Elizabeth Warren has been pushing. But to watch the look on his eyes when he realized, like, oh, I've been lied to, and this actually, like, we need to get our clients in on this more. That's been super rewarding. And it's been really exciting to see that play out. So you get that spectrum for sure. And I still stand by, and I firmly believe that, like, So the price hit 125. We'll get more inbound calls. Just number go up technology like that. It's very smooth brain to think of it like that, but that's just the truth.
That's what it is for sure. Number go up is the best marketing, absolutely. And especially if you're a money man and what you care about is seeing the chart go up and to the right, it's hard to ignore something that's gone from $0 to $120,000 in the last 16 years, right? It just makes all the sense in the world. And these regulations, we're getting more clarity. We've got the president and his family having $2 billion worth of Bitcoin exposure. They're running Bitcoin mining companies. And it does seem as if there is the consensus within just the world populace is changing towards Bitcoin. And a big factor of that is now that we've all transitioned to this AI world, the energy complaints have completely disappeared, right? And that was one of the largest long sticking complaints about Bitcoin, was that it uses too much energy. Well, AI uses a whole order of magnitude more than Bitcoin. So we're gonna complain about that. They've quickly changed their tune. But let's hop back into the newsletter and let's talk about the consensus changing around Bitcoin in our adoption section of Bitcoin News Weekly. Sign on up, go to weekly.bitcoinnews.com and subscribe, get this straight in your inbox. Two interesting news tidbits here. First one is flagship German news show Tagesschau airs a segment on Bitcoin's impact in Kibera, one of Africa's largest slums, a rare sign of legacy European media spotlighting Bitcoin's role in financial inclusion. So on this clip, yeah, I mean, Germany, it's interesting because Germany has so many Bitcoin meetups. They have one of the strongest Bitcoin communities in the world. Almost every town in Germany, it seems like, has a Bitcoin meetup. And they also have some of the best tax laws when it comes to Bitcoin, where if you hold for over a year, you have no capital gains, which is absolutely amazing. But of course, they are very into their green energy and whatnot. So there's a lot of FUD coming from that side of the political aisle against Bitcoin. And in the news, you can never really find a positive story out of Europe in Bitcoin. But they went to Africa. They went to Kibera, one of the largest slums in Africa, and saw how real world people are using Bitcoin on a daily basis. And it's really cool. I mean, whether it is Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, or Bitcoin Ikasi in South Africa, or here in Kibera, people are using Bitcoin every day for their main medium of exchange. And it's absolutely amazing to see these people just leapfrog the standard traditional banking system, because they have cell phones, but they don't have bank accounts, right? So they can have a Bitcoin wallet, earn Bitcoin, use Bitcoin to buy goods, and start a circular economy. So it's really, really cool to see. Yeah, what do you think about this positive news coming out of Europe here?
I think this just goes back to the big point that I always make with my friends about, while we today in the US or in modern Western civilizations may not feel or see a direct need for Bitcoin today, right now, the vast majority of the world actually does. And there are places that have already begun the adoption cycle and are using it on a daily and regular basis. And when you really open their eyes, I think the thing that has helped open a lot of my friends' eyes, or been like the mic dropping conversations, has just been like the financial privilege that we have, where like you want to walk down the street, be it any major metropolitan city, whether you're in the middle of the country or part of the coastal elite like Rob and I are, there's an ATM and you can access cash right away. Like, we have access to money in ways that the rest of the world wishes they could. But you go to a country like El Salvador, you go to any part of I forgot. Like, it's not like that. It's not as easy and simple as just, all right, I have my credit card, I have my ATM. There's, if I want to go to the grocery store, I'm going to drive past four different banks, and two of them I can easily get money out of, and the other two I just got to pay a small little fee. So we have quite a bit of privilege, and stories like this, I think, further highlight the necessity of Bitcoin in ways that Western citizens struggle to, I think, grasp and realize.
Absolutely. Bitcoin fills different needs for different people. And in the West, you're right, as a medium of exchange, people aren't using it so much. But in developing countries, people who don't have bank accounts, it's a godsend, right? And it changes their life. And just to see these circular economies where people are supporting each other, it helps the economy grow, right? You finally have a way to pay each other and have you can use it as a medium of exchange, but then you have a store of value, something that appreciates over time, and you can help your economy grow wherever you are. And speaking of the West and our Western culture, I'd like to highlight this next part of the adoption section. Part of my take. Do you listen to Part of My Take from Barstool Sports? Do you know it?
Yeah, I love
So,
Big Cat.
yes, Big Cat, and PFT. So this is one of America's, if not the largest, sports podcast. They praise their co-host Hank for dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin over the last 4 years, calling it the smartest thing he's ever done. So, I mean, we are in that part of the cycle where Bitcoin is starting to be in the news. People are starting to talk about it, and you're getting it more and more on larger and larger outlets, media platforms. So I think I have the video here. Let's take a look, take a watch of this. It's a good study of what Bitcoin is looked upon here in America.
I'm just gonna bring this back right now. The you think, because Saquon Barkley saying that if he could go back in time, he would like to get paid all in Bitcoin. That has gone up 7x since he started in the NFL. You think?
No, duh.
He's like, he basically was like, yeah, I would have rather gotten paid 7 times the amount
I wonder if the Giants had offered him the contract that they were offering him, but
in Bitcoin.
if he would have taken that.
Do you guys have any Bitcoin?
I'm heavily leveraged in Doge.
I think I bought a half a Bitcoin in like 2016. I don't know how to get it.
I got the Doge. It's in a wallet
I
somewhere.
buy a little
I
bit
think
every
so,
month.
yeah.
I have like an automatic.
Do you?
Yeah.
Good for you. That's the way
impressive.
you're supposed
That's
to do it,
super
Hank.
impressive.
Shout out to my brother.
That's actually really impressive.
Hank's the richest guy at
How did you
Barstool.
do that?
My brother told me to set it up.
Teach me how you did that.
Well, if
That's so smart.
I like
Up
don't know how to do any of
37%.
that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
pretty
sick.
good.
that's a really smart thing you did.
Damn, are you?
That might be smartest thing you've ever done.
My brother.
So unpack that, Q. What do you think? I mean, this is the largest sports podcast in America saying that one of their co-hosts buying Bitcoin, DCAing as you can with Swan, is one of the smartest things they've ever done. So yeah, I mean, what do you think about that?
I'm in the process of emailing Dave Portnoy right now. After what I did not see this clip, I'm 100% about to try to help Big Cat set all of this up. Big Cat, I know that you're a big Bitcoin news viewer, so feel free. My email address is just right down there, q@swan.com. So feel free, just hit me a quick little note, and let's get you set up, man. Let's get you Saquon level money, bro.
Yeah.
Look, I think we would be remiss to not pull the thread a little bit first on how this conversation ended up on Barstool. And as the guys mentioned, it's because of Saquon Barkley. And if not for Saquon Barkley, he's not doing this without the likes of Russell Okung. So shout out to the OG paid in Bitcoin athlete, whose Bitcoin that he got from his contract with the Chargers, I believe, is now worth more than the lifetime earnings of countless quarterbacks that he protected during his time as an NFL player. But also, we would be remiss to not shout out Jack Mullers and Strike. Yes, Corey, forgive me for doing that, but like Jack was instrumental in helping to get Saquon set up in Bitcoin, and we've seen Saquon openly discussing it. So without those steps in place, we're not hearing Barstool Sports openly talking about how they wish they'd been buying Bitcoin. Now, the irony of this is unless someone really presses them, like maybe a Marty Bent needs to get in touch with Big Cat and be like, hey, like, here you go. Like, I heard you talking about it. Like, don't be an idiot. Just get it all set up. But the truth is, like, most people have the reaction that Big Cat had, where he's like, oh, damn, like, I wish yeah, no shit. guess what? You're gonna have that same reaction in 5 years, in 10 years. You're gonna say the same thing. Oh, damn, I should have just been doing it in 2025. Like it's the rinse and repeat of the cycle of Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly, man. And many things you said there. Yeah, having professional athletes like Saquon, like Okong, Odell Beckham Jr. too. Just it's funny. I mean, Bitcoin seems adverse to big celebrity and whatnot, but they are some of the best ambassadors for getting the word out to the average person, right? And when you have a professional athlete who makes millions of dollars, way more than the average person ever would, say, "Hey, I messed up not getting paid in Bitcoin," that's going to make the average person think, "Oh, maybe I should do that too." And so to have Saquon be a champion of Bitcoin and getting paid in Bitcoin is a huge plus for the community. And then you have platforms like Barstool talking about it now. But there is still so much just lack of education, right? We have PFT talking about Dogecoin, like a meme from 10 plus years ago that people still hold on to for some reason. Makes absolutely no sense. But he
Oh,
said he lost his wallet and can't even access it, right? And then another interesting thing about that clip was the curiosity of the team members to be like, how do you do that? How do you DCA into Bitcoin? There's so many platforms, right? There's Swan, there's Strike, there's River, there's many places you can go to easily set up. You just put in your credit card and it will take it out every single day, week, month, whatever you want to set it. And it's one of the best ways to just keep accumulating Bitcoin, keep saving in the best technology that we have out there for keeping your time and value in growing over time. And so,
but
yes,
just want to really quickly correct something that you said there, Rob.
I mean,
The best place though is still Swan to DCA your Bitcoin.
boom. Gotta plug yourself. Absolutely. Feel free to do that as much as you want here. It's your privilege. But yes, it's people need just the basics, right? And we're here every single day talking about Bitcoin. You can buy a little bit of Bitcoin and it adds up because 10 years from now, you're going to be glad that you started today. Cool. Yeah, I thought that was a really, really interesting segment. And there are a lot of Barstool connections between
Dude, shout out
Bitcoin
Marty
people.
Bent, Uncle
Marty
Marty,
Bent,
man.
dude. I worked at Barstool for a little bit. I was a
No kid,
producer.
did you? Did
Yeah,
you?
but
What
before
show did you
this,
produce?
I was doing Rediscovering America with Nick, KB, and Donnie. We were traveling
No
around the
kidding.
country to different small cities and showing the
That's
local fare.
hilarious.
Yeah, it's
That's hilarious.
a lot of fun. But yes, back into Bitcoin. And so the last part of this adoption segment is we have Trump Media. This last week, they announced that they own $2 billion in Bitcoin and Bitcoin related securities, stating we are rigorously implementing our strategy and fulfilling our Bitcoin treasury plan. So the Trumps have gone all in on this, right? I mean, they they love their crypto, having fun with their crypto. But the Suns, I mean, they're running a Bitcoin mining company, and $2 billion in Bitcoin and Bitcoin related securities is no joke. The vast majority of the family's wealth now is tied into crypto. Um, I think the question for you, Q, do you think that they are front running the strategic Bitcoin reserve and America accumulating more Bitcoin?
That's actually one of the best questions I've received around just Trump, his family, and the general Bitcoin US policy. Because if you look at the track record of the way the Trump family has operated in the crypto space, the short answer is yes. Like, let's be perfectly blunt about this is a man who created an NFT line back in 22. This is a man who launched a called Trump Coin right after getting elected, and then also after selling an insider coin called Melania Coin on behalf of his wife. So, like, if is to teach us anything, it's that the Trump family doesn't operate while they control the ability to maneuver and frankly manipulate the market. That said, I'm curious, like you and I maybe have a certain understanding of what a Bitcoin related security is. But I think if we keep going through the list, the further outside of the circle of Bitcoin you go, I could see someone in the crypto space making an argument that ETH is a Bitcoin related security because the value of ETH trades sympathetically to the value of Bitcoin, not vice versa, however. And so that's why you can start and Doge and Solana, and you can go down the list of all these other shit coins. So I'm genuinely curious if like does Trump coin count as a Bitcoin related security, or are they just talking about the mining operations that they're doing? Also, understand and like my understanding of the Trump media announcement was this was still um it was Trump's coins, or was this in fact now they have finally like finalized the buys from Trump media?
I think this is Trump media. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. And also let's not forget that the $2 billion is still only what about 22% of the 9 billion that the OTC desk just sold. So again, like $2 billion of buys maybe actually help balance the market out a little bit. Who knows? Um, it's look, the fact that we have a US president openly talking about Bitcoin is huge. I have always said, always believed, and even when I was at Bitcoin Magazine, I did a back and forth article. Shout out Mark Goodman, who took the other side of this argument. But like the question that we posed is like, is Trump good or bad for Bitcoin? And I took the bad side, genuinely because he's such a polarizing figure. And my concern is less about what does Trump accomplish in his 4 years of office that relate to Bitcoin, but what happens the moment the Dems get into office?
Mhm.
Because we've seen time and time again that the policies that the Dems like to push aren't necessarily rooted in anything other than, well, Trump did this, so we need to do the opposite.
Mhm.
And that is my concern. And it'll be very interesting to see, I think, in the 2030s and beyond, if and when the Dems regain either the House, the Senate, whatever they're able to sort of like grasp onto, what they prioritize and what they kind of just are like accepting of.
Mhm.
For example, all those tax cuts. The Dems are mighty fine leaving those tax cuts in place for all their donors. So
Yeah, I think the Dems like to protest Bitcoin right now, but if you look at their actions and not at their words, you see something different. This Genius Act was passed through the House with a vote of like 310 to 80, right? This was vast bipartisan support for the Genius Act, which is of course about stablecoins, not necessarily Bitcoin, but they play together very closely now that we are entering into this new era where it seems as if we might be moving off the petrodollar and onto a Bitcoin dollar. Jack Mallers was talking about this last week in a video where they need to expand the dollar supply, right? We've got way too much debt. We can't pay it off at these levels. We need to create more dollars to devalue the debt, make it easier to pay off, but thus also devaluing your currency. So there needs to be an exit ramp for all this inflation. If they make the price of housing go up even more, you're going to lock out even more young people from being part of the American dream. If you inflate assets like stocks and whatnot even more, you're locking out, of course, younger people from ever getting on that ladder. What's the most uh, easiest way for them to go is just to allow Bitcoin to run to the moon, right, and absorb all of this inflation that they are going to print with the use of these stable coins that theoretically could double the amount of dollars that are in circulation across the planet. So yeah, I mean, Bitcoin has been painted red. It does have this Republican sort of lens on it right now, but for the long-term sustainability of the dollar and government continuity, I think both parties are going to see that, yeah, Bitcoin does offer them an off-ramp for this inflation and is probably better off for them to let it move forward rather than try to fight it tooth and nail.
100%. And I think to your point too, something that was really interesting that like kind of got lost in the election last year, but Kamala was like very staunchly against crypto until she wasn't. And that she did actually flip her script. So I am hopeful that the Dems kind of watched the way that the crypto and I hate the fact that I'm saying it like this, but it is true. The general crypto community came around Trump, donated a lot to his campaign, and it has now become a legitimate voting bloc. And I think the Dems can no longer ignore it or kind of scoff at it. So
Yeah, man. We've been waiting for this moment where Bitcoiners not only have the ideology on their side, but also the economic power, right? And that's was proven in this election. The largest donors were from the crypto PACs, like Fair Shake by Coinbase and whatnot, were the largest donating industry in all of America. And it worked, right? Not just Trump, but multiple senators and congressmen were elected due to this big push from the crypto industry, and everything that the crypto industry has wanted so far, they've gotten. So, in addition to that, we have this week over in the legal section, the crypto policy report from the president's working group on digital assets is to be released on July 30th. That is this Wednesday, and will include details on the feasibility of a strategic national stockpile. So, yeah, we've got the report. It's been started the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve executive order back in March, and we were supposed to get an audit of all the country's Bitcoin within 60 days. Well, it's been a bit longer than that, but we're finally getting the full digital assets report. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they've said that they're exploring ways in order to accumulate more Bitcoin in a budget neutral way. Will they release that in this report? We have yet to see. But what do you think? Do you think that the government is actually going to start stacking Bitcoin this year?
I don't think, as a Bitcoiner, I actually don't think that's fiscally responsible. Maybe we should figure out our national debt situation before we're just like aping in. That said, I do think there are responsible ways to go about this. I do think the introduction of something like a bit bond is actually something that um, entices and interests me in a few different ways. But most of all, I do not believe it would be fiscally responsible for the government to issue new currency. You just straight up print money for the sake of let's buy Bitcoin. As much of a Bitcoiner as I am, as much as I know that is actually probably the safest thing to spend newly printed money on, I also, frankly, firmly believe and sit on the side of if the government turns around and announces that, every other facet of this world, every other sector is going to turn around in hand and asking for their handout as well. And that's the slippery slope that I don't want to unlock. That's what I don't want to go down the path of. Oh, airline companies coming back out. Hey, you know what? If you're going to buy some crypto, why don't you just help us out a little bit, Boeing? We've been in a little bit too much hot water. Why don't you just give us some money for additional research so we can build better planes? Like, no, we don't need any of that. So I do think the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve took the right first step of, hey, let's not be net sellers of the Bitcoin that we acquire. I think that's a great first step. I think some issuance like a bit bond is a more appropriate approach because it also allows constituents, citizens to participate if they so choose. And I think something that gets lost on Bitcoin Twitter is, well, like you or I we're not going to buy the bit bond. Like if I have that loose capital, I'm buying more Bitcoin. Like let's be perfectly honest. But there's a large segment of money that's locked up in different pension plans and different types of accounts that can actually only access vehicles like bonds, more specifically government issued bonds. So all of a sudden, if you have a government issued bond that actually gives you indirect exposure to Bitcoin in a way that no other government issued bond has ever in the past, isn't that a net positive for Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's a spectrum, right? Because fiat is a confidence game. And when you have full confidence in fiat, there's no need for Bitcoin whatsoever. But as we're seeing over time, the dollar is losing its value, of course, and people are looking for alternatives. So we've got they could have just said, no, we don't need Bitcoin whatsoever. But they've made the first concession and said, okay, we're not going to sell any, right? And they slightly open the door to say, we're going to look to see how we could accumulate more without adding to the budget deficit. I think if you nudge it a bit further, then you get into bit bonds and say, okay, you still believe in fiat and you want dollars and a coupon from these bonds, but we'll add in a Bitcoin kicker because that's outperformed everything else. And Bitcoin's super sexy on these financial markets these days. But then the full loss of confidence in the fiat game is when they say, okay, we're just going to print money to buy Bitcoin. And you're right, it would start an arms race to the bottom where every country then would just throw up their hands and say, if the number one fiat in the world has lost confidence in itself, then we need to print to oblivion as well. And yeah, that world might be kind of chaotic and crazy. So it'd be nice if there was a nice, clean, over time transition into a hyper Bitcoinized world. But you don't know, monetary phenomenon can happen very quickly, especially in a game that's based on confidence like fiat. And one other section I would like to jump in terms of confidence and governments that we can look at here is, this was very interesting. The IMF confirms this week El Salvador's total government-held Bitcoin remains unchanged, with the strategic reserve fund's growth reflecting internal wallet transfers. So there's been lots of commotion over on X the last couple of months. El Salvador entered into a deal with the IMF. The IMF made it very clear that they were not allowed to accumulate more Bitcoin. They had to shut down the Chivo wallet, stop mining Bitcoin, and they could not add to their strategic Bitcoin reserve. But the Bitcoin office of El Salvador has been posting daily, hey, we bought another Bitcoin, we bought another Bitcoin. So people were naturally confused. Bitcoiners want to trust El Salvador and their Bitcoin project. But if you look at the IMF and the writings of the El Salvador's financial minister, it's clear they stopped buying Bitcoin a while ago. So I actually have a video of the IMF saying this recently. We can check that out.
Regarding the questions on Bitcoin, I don't have much new to say other than, as we have stated in the past, the total amount of Bitcoin held across government-owned wallets remains unchanged, and that is consistent with El Salvador's program commitments. The accumulation of Bitcoin by the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Fund is consistent with program conditionality, and the increases in the Bitcoin Reserve Fund relate to movements across various government-owned wallets.
So Q, what do you think about that? Do you think El Salvador is still stacking Bitcoin, or are they actually doing what the IMF said, which is they have stopped their program?
I think the IMF's opinion on this is more or less irrelevant. This is the same country that said or this is the same group that said that El Salvador's Bitcoin purchases were deemed too risky and that they were going to end up defaulting on the loans that were owed. And then Bukele very proudly and loudly made the loan payment on time, on schedule. I think this is, I want to tie this back to the Genius Bill because I don't see this part talked about enough. I see it sometimes talked about in the context of the IMF and El Salvador, in that the IMF is afraid of Bitcoin because it would render the IMF obsolete. I don't know how many of either yourself or the viewers at home watch the All In podcast. I tune in very regularly. And when David Sachs, the first time and the second time he came on to talk about the Genius Bill, he said the quiet part out loud and he brushed it off. And I saw a lot of people brush it off as well. But I think this was the signal. The banking industry and the banking conglomerates would have vetoed the Genius Act if stablecoin issuers were allowed to offer interest to their users, because the interest would have been 5% of that, far surpassing whatever BS 0.01% interest rate you're getting in your checking account. Specifically, though, Sachs mentioned it was like the smaller banks, not like the national chains, but like the smaller local banks were the ones really aghast by the interest rate that stablecoin issuers can do. And he genuinely said they were afraid that it would make them obsolete and put them out of business. That's because they should be, because they are right and Sachs is wrong, and they would have been run out of business over time because the market would dictate that. And I think ultimately that's what we're seeing play out with IMF, and they're trying to do and say anything possible to try and make us question, doubt, have some sort of fear around, oh, did Bukele change his stance now? Or are we no longer going to see El Salvador purchasing Bitcoin? Um, this is why I just go back to say, I think Bukele has probably the most conviction of any politician globally. And I would even go so far as to say he has more conviction than Lamas, only because he has the ability to just unilaterally go and buy Bitcoin in a way that Lummis doesn't. Um, but ultimately, we are seeing game theory play out in real time, and every other country that is taking the same position as El Salvador has done it because of them. And twice in one show, you're my boy Jack again, like leaving his fingerprints all over Bitcoin globally.
Yeah, I mean, the El Salvador Bitcoin project is still alive, even if they had to pause their Bitcoin accumulation right now, while they have this deal with the IMF. I still think that Bitcoin country is El Salvador. El Salvador is Bitcoin country because, of course, they have the circular economies. They have the education initiatives, Cubu Plus, Mi Premier Bitcoin coming out of El Salvador. And it's a general ethos over there. I mean, there's many Bitcoiners from around the world who moved there to further the mission, right? So whether they're accumulating or not is up in the air. I mean, I still don't think, I think there might be some obfuscation going along with the Bitcoin office of El Salvador when it comes to where these daily Bitcoin added to the strategic reserve is coming from. But at the end of the day, they still are Bitcoin country, and they are going to carry that flag for a very long time. So yes, at this juncture though, I would like to give a big shout out to our main sponsor. That would be Rhino Bitcoin. I got Rhino right here on my phone. It's the all-in-one Bitcoin super app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. With it, you can buy or sell your Bitcoin instantly. You can send sats anywhere on the Lightning Network. You can withdraw straight to cold storage and even turn sats into gift cards on the app. Also, if you got Casa multisig, link it straight from Rhino, and you've got your multi-sig setup right there. That's your phone setup right there is one of the 3 or 5 keys. And Rhino, they're just warming up. Soon you'll be able to pay your bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and stack for retirement, all without leaving the app. And just last week, they announced that they are available in every American state except for New York. New York is so bad when it comes to these Bitcoin apps. It's really quite sad. Get your stuff together, New York. But yes, if you are in any other one of the American states, go ahead, go download Rhino at rhinobitcoin.com, or just tap the link below in the description. Use code Bitcoin News, and Rhino will drop you $10 in free Bitcoin straight into your account today. So go secure your stack with Rhino right now. And also, if you're on X, go over to their X page. They have a giveaway going on right now, celebrating the fact that they're available across the country. They're giving away up to 1 million sats with a grand prize of 500,000 sats given away on August 4th. So go sign up, share your referral code over on their X page under that post, and you will be in the running for 500,000 sats. That is generational wealth we are talking about, my people. All right. Thank you so much, Rhino. And we'll get back to the show with my man, Q. And Q, I would like to bring up next these markets. I think a big deal here. Let's talk about strategy. Launching the STRC preferred shares. This is a preferred stock offering 9% yield and investor-friendly liquidation terms. Ends up raising $2.474 billion to buy more Bitcoin, making it the most successful IPO of 2025. So yes, this was a big deal. Strategy has really gone headfirst into the financial engineering, trying to find financial products that are the most attractive to the market, the way for them to turn fiat into Bitcoin exposure for their clients and provide value in this fiat world, right? So this new preferred shares, they are starting with a 9% yield. It's supposed to stay at $100. So you buy the share for $100. It stays at that price, and you get 9% annually on the amount of shares that you have, right? And it seems like this is sort of the sweet spot. They've been looking for different combinations here that are most attractive, and this one really seems to be it. People are yield starved. They want yield. They know that CPI doesn't tell the full story. Inflation is a lot stronger than they are telling us, and they need to make money off of their money, and this is offering them a way to do so. And they raised $2.5 billion in just a couple days by offering this. Yeah, what do you have any insight into the preferred shares of Strategy, what they're doing now? Seems as if they turned down the convertible notes, are all about these preferred shares, and this one that sort of acts as a stable coin, right? A stable share, and offering a 9% annual yield is the most attractive one yet. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I will do very little justice compared to my colleague John Haar, who comes from the fixed income market, and he explained this far more eloquently. So I'm going to try to paraphrase everything that I can remember from a conversation from 2 days ago, but available on Swan Signal, the episode that just dropped on Friday. What was that? The 25th. Um, but the long and the short of it is the interest payment will be paid out quarterly, and it's going to be a fixed interest, so it's not going to fluctuate based too much based on um, any rate changes, which is something really unheard of or unprecedented. So that's going to be an interesting way to see how this plays out. I also saw a lot of reports over the weekend that this was meant to have 500 million shares sold, but it was so oversubscribed that they had 2.5 billion instead of stretched shares sold. Um, I think all of this just continues to point to the investor interest in strategy and what strategy is trying to do and create. What I'd be more curious to see, and I think this would be the more interesting thing, is what is the spread of strategy shareholders to then how many shareholders of each of these different vehicles? Because now we're on what, investment vehicle number 4, the strategy is now released. How many of each of those vehicles are strategy shareholders? What percentage? And and then as each new one was released, how many also own the most previous version of this? Um, I think we're seeing in real time Michael Saylor gave a giant middle finger. Apologies to all the kiddos out there. Um, to just the general market, and you've given him the ability to play with this market in a way that it was designed to be played with. He's not doing anything out of bounds. Like, this is all, any publicly traded company actually has the ability to create any and all of these vehicles, but he has figured out a way to do so and to further entrench himself in the Bitcoin space and to use it as capital to continue to buy more Bitcoin, which ultimately I think it's going to set strategy apart from every other company that exists, full stop.
Yeah, they could be the bank of the future, right? They are definitely creating financial products that different markets want and need. And it's super interesting to see where these different participants come from, right? The convertible bonds were for the gamma traders, and these preferred shares are for the fixed income market. And MSTR shares, of course, are the retail fanboys' favorite. So there's different products for different markets. And I mean, he even came out at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas and said that he was using AI to come up with these things, right? So he's pushing the boundaries, trying different products, and this one seems to be a huge hit. So tomorrow, it seems as if he will be able to access that money and unleash it on the market to buy some more Bitcoin. And if we look at the state of Bitcoin treasury companies, we see here in the past 7 days, 19 companies have increased their holdings, bringing the top 100 public companies total to 920,866 Bitcoin. Almost a million, right? Almost matching Satoshi's 1 million, 1.1 million. And if you look at this list, I mean, strategies up top, they've got 607,000 Bitcoin. That's nearly 3% of the total Bitcoin supply. And then you've got everybody else. Mara coming in number 2 with 50,000. Jack Mahler's 21 coming in with 37,000. And then Adam Back's Bitcoin Standard Treasury Company at 30,000. So it's we've got big name players like Jack Mahler's, like Adam Back coming in hard. They're just catapulted themselves to the 2 of the top 4 positions. And then we've got Donald Trump Media coming in at number 6 with 18,000 Bitcoin. I mean, this is it's really nuts to see, especially when it comes to these big names entering the market. And one interesting tidbit I would like to sort of end this on is that many people are scared that these Bitcoin treasury companies are going to cause the next bear market. But if you add up numbers of the Bitcoin treasury companies, take all the Bitcoin from number 34 to 230 of these Bitcoin treasury companies, all those together equal to 80,000 Bitcoin that were just sold on the market. So they might in the future cause a bear market, but I think we're gonna see this market get a whole lot crazier and a lot wilder before anything like that comes to pass.
I think this number hits 1 million before we see the bear market. We're 80,000 more Bitcoin.
Oh, that's going to happen in a couple weeks. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the real question is like, how much of the total Bitcoin supply do you think these companies are going to get? Jesse Coroisis BTC over on X, of course, he thinks that corporations are going to control 50% of all Bitcoin. Do you think that is a disaster scenario for the Bitcoin experiment if that comes to pass?
I think, it's tough to make that judgment call today without knowing, I think, who the other entrants in the space would be. Um, like the ethos of Bitcoin is don't trust, verify. And as much as everyone likes to simp for Saylor, like I do admire what Saylor has built, and I'm very much on board with his mission and what strategy is doing. And yeah, I'm talking my book, and please strategy, like let's get another like quick little 4-figure stock price. Just a quick little doubling of the stock price from here would be greatly appreciated from your measly little investor. Um, but ultimately, I think it will. We'll see. Like, would you feel comfortable if Mark Zuckerberg turned around and said Meta is going to start accumulating Bitcoin? Personally, I wouldn't.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think every company is going to become a Bitcoin treasury company to some extent, right? In the future, every one of these major companies is going to need to have some.
So here's something that Ben Workman, shout out our chief investment officer at Swan, kind of put on my radar, and I thought this was super interesting, and I want to leave this note with you guys. The vast majority of the current iteration of Bitcoin treasury companies are zombie companies. These are companies that are failing, are on their last legs. And no disrespect to what MicroStrategy was doing before they adopted Bitcoin, but you and I, we had to look up what MicroStrategy's business was. It wasn't a household name. We didn't know what this business was. I think what will be interesting in the next iteration of Bitcoin treasury companies are either existing businesses like the behemoth Mag 7, which I'm working on an article, hopefully soon will come out on Swan's blog, and maybe I'll come back and talk to you about it, Rob. Or what's more interesting, in my opinion, is a growth company, a company that's already growing very naturally and very rapidly because of the business model that they have in place, but then complements that because they're cash flow positive with a Bitcoin accumulation strategy. And then all of a sudden that increase just exponentially grows. I think those are two types of companies that we have not seen enter the Bitcoin treasury market. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what their priorities look like and what their accumulation strategies look like as well. It will be different than what we've seen thus far.
Yeah, I think any company that is sitting on a large pile of cash, it's in their financial fiduciary duty to protect their stock's value, and they can't just let that value melt away, as we're seeing with the dollar. Right, this is the worst start to the dollar in nearly 50 years, and if you price the stock market in Bitcoin, it's down 85% over the last couple of years. Right, so anybody who is sitting on a large pile of cash, you're going to need a way to protect it. Bitcoin is it, and these megacorps, these Mag 7s, so far it's only Tesla who has any Bitcoin. Right, soon I think many more will wisen up and realize that, hey, there's really no way to protect ourselves from the mass devaluation of the US dollar without getting our hands on a substantial amount of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Rob, I got a job.
Absolutely.
Good man,
Cheers.
though.
You did
Thank you
it,
for
man.
having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. This has been another edition of Bitcoin News Weekly. Big shout out to my co-host this week, Q, over at Swan. Go to swan.com and DCA some Bitcoin, and head over to bitcoinnews.com. Sign up for the newsletter, and we will see you next Monday, 11 a.m. right here. Peace, everybody.